name is Donald Luxton. I'm a heritage consultant, and I have been involved in the practice of heritage conservation for a long period of time in the Lower Mainland and throughout Western Canada. And Ioco is, to me, a very special and extremely significant place. I've been fortunate to be involved with the Ioco town site for a number of years now. Uh, Dating back to 1997, when I was first involved working with the Port Moody Heritage Commission on an inventory of the city of Port Moody, obviously Ioco was one of our key areas of focus. As we developed the content of the heritage inventory that the Heritage Commission had started work on, my involvement was to help guide the process of research and evaluation to determine the significance of individual sites. Clearly, Ioco was a grouping, an area, and existed for very particular reasons. During the next few years, as we developed the heritage program further, we undertook a strategic plan for the city's heritage initiatives. And in addition, we also developed statements of significance for each site as we placed them on the city's heritage register. And moving forward in that development of heritage planning, it became obvious that Ioco really did deserve special attention as a grouping. It was a grouping of 17 sites that were part of an original company town that is quite unique within the Lower Mainland context. Working forward from that, we found it to be most effective to propose a heritage conservation area that would provide greater legal protection for the site. And that involved not just the city of Port Moody, but also the Heritage Commission, plus many community advocates who supported very strongly the idea of protection for Ioco and maintaining it as a special area. That cooperation also included the owners. Of course, the unique situation that virtually all the sites are in the ownership of one owner, of course, and the history of the site is quite long and convoluted, but because it did start as a company town, the company still owned most of the sites. So this was an interesting process in 2002 that resulted in the acceptance of a heritage conservation area by all involved as the correct way to move forward to understand the future of the site and how it was going to be protected. Ioco is clearly important for many reasons. The history of BC is really about the development of the resource industries that drove the economy of BC. And many of these resources, which were being either harvested or processed at the time, 100 years plus ago, or even into the 20th century, many of them are at remote locations. BC is an extremely large place, and our resources are where they are. We don't choose that location. So often we have to, historically, we've gone to the resources rather than and processed, developed, harvested at the source. And Ioco is a very interesting example of that. The refineries were being established on Burrard Inlet, obviously because of the ability to ship from that location. And as Ioco was one of the very first refineries in Western Canada, it occupied a key kind of strategic place in this economic development. The location, though, was remote, relatively remote, surprisingly, because it was just hard to get to on the north side of Burrard Inlet. So access was a challenge, and the workers either had to come in every day or live at the periphery of the site when it was first established. And timing was not great. and of course, as Ioco was being conceived and developed by 1913, it was just getting underway with the outbreak of the First World War. That actually accelerated the development of the plant, but delayed the construction of proper housing for the workers. And ultimately, as the plant did continue to develop over the First World War, plans were initiated after the war to begin to provide proper housing for workers in proximity to the plant. This was a major step forward in the 1920s in terms of the development of the Ioco town site. And again, part of its interest as a company town is it was built really comprehensively, designed by one architect and built by the same contractors and built consistently in a way that we don't see in our usual urban settings and landscapes. But the consistency of that type of housing that we see in company towns is evident in Ioco. And part of what's really interesting about it is because of that remoteness, the development beside an industrial site, it developed really as a community. That the workers lived there. They didn't come in from remote, and they actually lived there with their families. There were churches, there was places to buy groceries, there was a community hall, there was all the facilities that we would expect in a small settlement, all kind of provided within this company town environment. They were once much more common. These company towns over time have been superseded by other means of extraction and production, and often these towns were abandoned. So we don't have a lot of examples left. They're few and far between. And of course, there were company towns associated with the mines, Britannia Beach, Steveston, the canneries, and Ioco, the refinery. So these are very important parts of our historical reference, and makes Ioco, again, even more special because it is one of our last surviving local company towns. Now, it's not complete. Many of the buildings were removed, and then the process that started in 1997 really stopped that removal process to keep what was left. And there are really remarkable remnants of the town. The school is still there, the church is still there, the hall is still there, the grocery is still there, and a number of individual houses that date back to as early as 1914. They're all considered important, and they're all listed within the Heritage Conservation Area bylaw. And that provides legal protection. And over the last years, since 2002, I've been part of initiatives to monitor the buildings, make sure they're properly mothballed and taken care of until they can be repurposed. And of course, the church is still active. But we're waiting to see now how the town can move into its next phase of development and occupation. And I think everybody who has been interested in Ioco and everybody who's fought so hard for its preservation and to its revitalization want to see it come to life again. And there's been various discussions about how that could happen. It's kind of a little bit sad to see it without people living there. And so one of the things that I and other people have hoped for and worked for is to see ultimately a rehabilitation of the buildings to take on uses again. This has been very challenging given all kinds of issues, from access to hazardous materials on site to any number of things that are challenges. However, I don't feel these are insurmountable, and I think there's many ways to begin to see this site as coming alive again. Number one, we always saw several aspects of it beyond the buildings as being important. Number one, its location, of course. Its stunning setting on Burrard Inlet and south-facing slope, views to the south, sun, that are so highly desirable and would make it desirable again from a certainly from a community development point of view. The buildings themselves, I think, have all kinds of opportunities to form the core of a new village at Ioco, something that was allowed for in the 2002 Heritage Conservation Area bylaw, that it was always an idea of integrated development and integrated revitalization of the entire community. That has to be, again, kind of rethought, because it's almost like a mouth with missing teeth. There's buildings that have been removed, there's empty sites. They are perfect for infill. They could be revitalized with new buildings that support the old buildings and the overall kind of concept of this as a revitalized community. Recognizing that there are challenges, the other thing that we also thought in trying to conceptualize revitalization of Ioco, we always thought it was important that it was a community, that it had these other aspects than residential, that it was its own charming town center, just exactly the type of place you'd design if you were starting from scratch. And so it really fits in with our ideas now of new urbanism and urban development, and how to make a community really come to life. The waterfront location is superb. The history is impeccable. It has many things that point to a successful future. However, there are challenges, as we've seen, that relate to access to the overall lands and area. It's very difficult from a traffic point of view, a problem still unresolved in Port Moody, and has to be thought of in a broader sense. But moving into the future, I think there's many reasons to be optimistic that this town site offers us an opportunity to remember our history, an opportunity for placemaking, and a way to think about bringing the past into today and making it more relevant. So for many reasons, it speaks to me of the future of Port Moody as much as the past.